Also you can say we are going to start, okay, week 4. We'll cover week 4 August 2021. And in this class, friends, I will cover the topics as per main and then also for prelims. So that means key few topics are very important for your preparation and also for you can say key for means, okay, that means the general studies, and that means the UPSC, and also you can say state services. Yeah, here is one question, just a minute. So, sir, for medieval, Satish Chandra is enough. Salvation for medieval, okay, medieval history. You can say Satish Chandra is okay, good for your concept. That means Satish Chandra is you can say na you can get a clear picture related to medieval period. Yeah, so for state service and also for UPSC, Satish Chandra is enough. But you will have to read about, you can say, class 6 of the class 6 to 12, okay, history books, because NCRT is also important, okay. So Satish Chandra plus you can say new NCRT books or also old NCRT books. In an old NCRT class 7 or 8 maybe is medieval history, okay, and Satish Chandra wrote these books. So this is very very important. Yeah, you can get the details, okay, about medieval history from Satish Chandra. Yes, Satish Chandra ji enough. And also please try to okay practice you can say 4 prelims test series, okay. And then 4 means please go through previous year question and please go through medieval history question. And after that, you can easily understand what is the nature of the question, what is the demand of the question. And according to previous analysis, or also you can say according to previous year, you'll get idea how to write answer. Okay, how to write answer. So please go through previous year question, and also first of all please try to cover your syllabus, okay. And also if you have optional, so and if you are going to appear next year or next year, okay, so first of all you should cover optional subject, and after that, okay, within 3 to 4 months, 3 to 4 months is enough for optional subject if you'll go through on daily basis, okay. And after that try to come on general studies syllabus. And whenever, okay, you will start your preparation, or first of all if you are okay preparing, that means you should use to read newspaper. Not only you can say the Hindu, if you are interested in any newspaper, Indian Express or any newspaper, okay, so you should go through newspaper on daily basis. So let's just start our discussion with the first topic. First of all, friends, in a means we'll cover caste census, because okay, if you have you can say current affair knowledge, so you okay maybe you can say you have okay knowledge related to caste census also, because in a before 3 to 4 days delegation from Bihar, okay, met with our prime minister. So caste census in frequent news. So first of all we cover caste census, and then from polity section there is a topic tribunals reforms bill 2021, okay. And then a new end game in Afghanistan, and we have covered this topic in any previous classes, okay. Then we'll cover plastic waste management, rules on beating plastic pollution, okay. Then for prelims there is various topics we'll discuss one by one. So let's start our discussion with the first topic. And the first topic is, friend, you can see here कि caste census in the times of changing social equation, okay, in changing social equation. First of all, this topic is related to society, and also you can say geography, okay. So what is the context? 2020, or you also you can say 2021 census of India, and it is the 16th census, okay. 2021 is the 16th census of India, okay. So please keep in the mind. And friends, will be taken in 2021. And do you know 2021 census is completely okay digital census, so please keep in the mind, and this is the first time, okay. But the growing demand for a caste census from various sections of society have once again, okay, surfaced the issue like its immediate need and long-term repercussion, okay. And also, I told you a delegation from Bihar met with our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and they demand for caste census. And also, you can say ki, demand of caste census from Bihar, UP, because in a Bihar, UP, if you have knowledge related to politics, if you know about anything about, you can say politics. So according to me, you have knowledge related to caste, because in a Bihar or UP, caste is a dominant factor in electoral system. Caste is a dominant factor. Okay. So please keep in the mind. So I have told you what is the context. Now let's discuss the background. Do you know origin of the census? Origin of the census in India goes back to the colonial exercise of 1881. First time, legally 1881, but census was also conducted in 1872. In 1872, so please keep in the mind. And census has evolved and been used to capture the Indian population. Capture the Indian population. That means the number of population. Capture the number of population. Please keep in the mind. Okay. Number of population. Then access resources. Access resources. Okay. And then map social change. Map social change, please keep in the mind. Then delimitation exercise. Delimitation exercise. Delimitation exercise means कि after census there will be delimitation commission, and which will study about the seats related to state legislature and related to our parliament. So please keep in the mind. And also friends, first of all we should know about what is the meaning of the caste. What is the meaning of the caste? So प्लीज कीप इन द माइंड, क्योंकि हम लोग कहते हैं ना कि जब तक आप मीनिंग को नहीं समझोगे तो कैसे पता चलेगा व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ द कास्ट. डू यू नो आई हैव कवर यू कैन से कि कास्ट पोर्शन इन एंशिएंट हिस्ट्री आल्सो, from Vedic society to post Vedic society. So please keep in the mind. So can you tell me what is the meaning of the caste? Anyone, if you want to tell me, please raise your hand, and also you can comment. I will read your comment. Anyone? I do not want to take name personally. If you will not reply, it will be my duty.
Sir, it may be a Portuguese word. Caste is a Portuguese word.
Okay, so anyone?
So it's a division in the society, a class of group.
Okay, very good. Anyone? Okay, no problem. First of all, you can say the origin of the caste from the Vedic society. In Vedic society, there were four, you can say ki Varna, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. But in Vedic period, caste system was based on profession. But in the post-Vedic period, caste was based on hereditary. That means father is Brahman. That means his son will be Brahman. So please keep in the mind. And also, friends, each of the hereditary classes of Hindu society are distinguished by relative degrees of ritual purity, or you can say ki pollution and social status. And also you can say caste is the system of dividing society into classes. And any class or group of people who inherit exclusive privilege or are perceived as socially distinct, this is also known as the caste. So we can say in a one line, caste is a group of classes. So there's four types of, you can say classes. So please keep in the mind. Now, let's discuss friend. I told you the origin of the census in India goes back to the colonial exercise of 1881. And census evolved basically four things: capture the Indian population, then access resources, maps social change than delimitation exercise. Friends, however, as early as the 1940s, W.M. Yeats, okay, please keep in the mind W.M. Okay, W.M. Yeats, Census Commissioner of India. He was the Census Commissioner of India for the 1941 census, and he had pointed out that there shall be no all India caste table in the 1940s due to enormous expenditure in World War II. So, what was the period of World War II? Anyone? Do you have any knowledge of facts related to Second World War? So, what was the period of Second World War? Susmita? Yeah, ready.
So
Daddy.
1939 to 1945.
Yeah, very good. And first war, what was the period of World War first?
1914 to 1918.
Yes, very good, Daddy. Yes. So second World War period was 1939 to 1945. So I told you कि in 1940 W.M. Yeats and he was the Census Commissioner for India for the 1941 census, and he had pointed out that there shall be no all India caste table in the 1940s. Why? Due to enormous expenditure in World War II. Okay. So let's see the caste census and its actual origin. What is the actual origin of caste census? Okay, please keep in the mind. So origin of caste census. Okay, please keep in the mind. The caste census is often linked British era, okay, of divide and rule. British era of divide and rule. Okay, maybe you have knowledge. Okay, also you should knowledge related to okay partition of Bengal, then 1909 Act, or also you can say ki Morley Minto reforms. Okay, do you know Morley Minto reforms is the you can say ki main reason for okay separation of India and also communism in India. Okay, so please keep in the mind because they were okay separate electorate. Okay. So the caste census is often linked to British era of divide and rule. But it's a beautiful piece of information to know that some 200 years before British rule, between 1658 and 1664, the Home Minister, okay, Munhata Nancy of the Marwar Kingdom, ruled by Maharaja Jaswant Singh Rathod, conducted the first caste census. So please keep in the mind, during the period of 1658 to 1664, okay, during the period of 1658 to 1664, the Home Minister Munhata Nancy, the Home Minister, please keep in the mind, Home Minister, okay, Munhata Nancy, and of the Marwar Kingdom, okay, of the Marwar Kingdom, okay, and you can say कि Marwar Kingdom was ruled by Maharaja Jaswant Singh Rathod, Maharaja Jaswant Singh Rathod, Jaswant Singh Rathod, okay, Jaswant Singh Rathod, please keep in the mind, and he conducted the first census. He conducted the first caste census, okay. So now let's see the analysis portion of this topic. So friend, the 15th edition of India Census 2011, okay, had taken into account the data of population based on socio-economic and caste. Also, you can say socio-economic and caste status for the first time after 1931. After 1931. Okay, please keep in the mind. And as the enumeration was based on self-declaration, and it resulted in hundreds of thousands of castes subcaste category. Okay, thousands of caste or subcaste category. An average census from 1951 to 2011 has published data on scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, but not on other castes. But not on other castes. So please keep in the mind. That means in 15th edition of Indian census, that means the 2011 census was based on socio-economic and caste, okay, status, and for the first time after 1931. And you can say ki in census 2011 there were thousands of caste and subcaste categories. An average census, okay, after independence, okay, published data on scheduled caste. That means ki scheduled SC and ST, but not on other caste, but not on other caste. Okay. So what is the socio-economic and caste census? That means ki SECC. Let's say. So in 2011, the socio-economic and caste census was conducted for the first time since 1931. I told you. And every census, okay, census until 1931 had a mention of data on caste. And every census in independent India from 1951 to 2011 has published data on SC and ST, but not on other caste. We have discussed. And socioeconomic and caste census is meant, okay, to canvass every Indian family, both in rural and urban India, and ask about their economic status, so that allows central and state machinery can come up with a range of indicator of deprivation, permutation, and combination. Please keep in the mind three things: deprivation, permutation, and combination. Combination of which could be used by the state to define a poor or deprived person. To define a poor or also you can say poor or deprived person. That means कि socio-economic caste census, okay, will allow the government to segregate which caste groups were economically worse off and which were better off. That means what is the condition of the caste, okay, caste group. For example, what is the condition of the Brahman caste? What is the condition of the, you can say, Best caste? What is the condition of the Sudra caste? Okay, and after that government can formulate you can say ki, okay, best policy for their interest. And socio-economic caste census has the potential to allow for a mapping of inequalities at a broader level, at a higher level. And friends, we'll discuss about the Mandal Commission and also Kaka Kelkar Commission. Okay, so Mandal Commission came up with an estimate of the OBC population at 52% using methods of extrapolation. Okay, methods of extrapolation. That means you can say ki 52% is the lump sum percent, not the you can say ki fixed, okay, percentage or exact percentage. So please keep in the mind. So this is all about you can say ki socio-economic and caste census. Now I'm going to okay tell you about the socio-economic caste census 2011 key finding. Okay, so you can see here this image. So what is the key finding of socio-economic and caste census 2011 for rural India? Basically for rural India, you can see here 24.39 crore, okay, of total households. That means ki rural or plus urban. Okay, so that means ki basically what is the total family? 24.39 crore. Okay, this is the number of total family in India. And you 17.91 crore is the total rural households, and 2.37 crore households with only one room and kacha walls and kacha roof. So there is a scheme, Pradhan Mantri Avasi Yojana. Okay, you will have to read about Pradhan Mantri Avasi Yojana, Gramin and sorry, that means the urban and rural. And you can see here is 65.15 lakh. Okay, that means the no adult member in household between the age of 18 and 59. That means in 65.15 lakh family has not a adult member. Okay, and the age group 18 and 50, between 18 and 50. And in India, there is 3.86 crore family is scheduled caste or scheduled tribe family, and also you can see households, and 4.21 crore, okay, households with no literate adult above age 25 years, okay, and 5.37 crore is a family is landless households deriving a major part of their income from manual labor. And in India, there is 9.16 crore, okay, is a manual casual labor, and 5.39 crore is cultivation labor. So you'll have to keep in the mind. So this is also you can see 5.39 crore family is basically depend on cultivation. Okay, so this is a major fact. You can use this fact in your answer writing, in your essay writing. Okay, so this is you can say key finding of socio-economic caste census 2011. So what happened to the socio-economic caste census 2011 data? So this is the big question. Okay. So what happened to the data? Okay. So let's discuss what happened. Friends, the socio-economic caste census exercise was done by the Ministry of Rural Development in rural areas and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation in urban areas. And basically, you can say socio-economic caste census, but caste is related to, you please keep in the mind, census is related to Home Ministry. Okay, there is a separate department of census department. Please keep in the mind. Okay, so socio-economic caste census was done by two ministry. Okay, rural development in rural areas. Okay, then Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs in urban areas. Okay, please keep in the mind, in urban area. And the data of socioeconomic and caste census excluding caste, okay, data was published by the two ministers in the year 2016. Data was published in 2016. And the crude data, okay, also you can say the crude caste data was given to the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and which formed an expert group under Arvind Pangaria for the classification and categorization of collected data. And so far, no such report has been made public. So you'll have to keep in the mind that these two ministries, okay, given the data to the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, okay, formed the, you can say, the expert group under Arvind Pangaria. Okay, Arvind Pangaria. So please keep in the mind. But after formation expert group, there is not a such report which is in public. So please keep in the mind. So I told you what happened to the socio-economic caste census 2011 data. Now let's discuss the measure took by the government after independence. Okay, for you can say ki caste census, and for you can say ki the backward classes, then scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and also for reservation. So let's see the measures took by the government after independence. In 1953, okay, government formed a Kaka Kelkar Commission under Article 340. Under Article 340, and which was formed to investigate the condition of socially and educationally backward classes within the territory of India. So first time in 1953, there were Kaka Kelkar Commission. Then after, okay, you can say ki in 1978-79, Janata Party government, okay, formed a new commission in 1979, and the commission name was Mandal Commission under Article 340. Under Article 340, and why? And it was established for the socially and educationally backward classes commission with a mandate to identify the socially or educationally backward classes of India. Okay, so please keep in the mind two commission, and the first commission was formed by Congress government, and the second commission was formed by Janata Party government. But in 1992, they were Indira, Sahni या Sohni, इंदिरा साहनी भी बोलते हैं. Indira Sohni. Indira Sohni, the Supreme Court held that should be in a place of permanent body to look into the matter of inclusion and non-inclusion of groups, classes, and section of other backward classes. Okay, so please keep in the mind. And also, friend, Indira Sohni case is related to the limitation of the reservation. That means, what is the limitation? 50%. Okay, please keep in the mind. Okay. And friends, in 2018, National Backward Classes, also you can say National Backward Classes Commission and National Commission for Backward Classes in 2018 was made a constitutional body, constitutional body, and by the 102nd Constitution Amendment Act. Okay, by 102nd Constitution Amendment Act. So basically, 102nd Constitution Amendment is related to NBCC. That means ki 102nd Constitution Amendment gave the constitutional status of National Backward Class Commission. So please keep in the mind. Okay, and friends, also there's one thing. 102nd Constitution Amendment Act inserted new articles. Inserted new articles 338B, and 342A. 342A. So what is Article 338B? Let's understand. So Article 338B provides authority to National Commission for Backward Classes to examine complaints and welfare measures regarding socially and educationally backward classes. So basically, Article 338B, gives the authority to NCBC to examine complaints and welfare measures. So what is Article 332A? So Article 332A empowers President to specific, 5 and educationally, also you can see specify socially and educationally backward classes in various states and union territories. So please keep in the mind. And friends, the amendment also bring about changes in Article 366. Also you should read about Article 366. And there is also, friends, government from the new commission, Rohini Commission. Rohini Commission. So Rohini Commission was constituted in October 2017 under Article 340 of the Constitution, and Rohini Commission submit its report on the subcategorization of other backward classes. That means the OBC. So please keep in the mind. And friends, now let's discuss why do we need a census to be done. So according to me, in order to better understand the population of society and what people have access to and what they are excluded from. And second thing, it is relevant, not only for social scientists, but also for policymakers and academicians. And the Census of India enumerated and collects demographic and socioeconomic data on the Indian population. But friends, there is also a concern, concern associated with socioeconomic and caste census. That means we should discuss about what is the argument against the caste census and what is the argument, you can say what is the positive outcomes of the caste census. So let's discuss one by one what is the argument, against the caste census. So there is fear of breaching the 50% ceiling for a caste-based reservation. I told you the Indira Sohni case is related to ceiling for reservation and also limitation on reservation. So there is a fear of breaching the 50% ceiling for a caste-based reservation, and it is argued that a socio-economic caste census is the only way to make a case to breach the 50% cap on the reservation. Okay, so there is also procedural issue. What is the procedural issue, friends? As per the central list, the total number of OBC in the country stands at 6,285. 6,285 is the, okay, you can say OBC. So please keep in the mind. While the number further increased to 7,200, okay, 7,200 groups, okay, 7,200 if the list is prepared by the states and union territories are taken into consideration. So the, you can say the Rohini Commission is in place to look into the subcategorization of other backward classes. Then friends, there is also social fragmentation. There will be, okay, you can say there is chance. So basically caste identification can lead to, okay, friction amongst various classes and can result in increased caste enmity. And there have been concerns that caste census may result in a society with reinforced identities, and it is being argued that counting caste will perpetuate it further deeper. Then there, okay, maybe a partial benefits. So the way reservation is practiced in the country, it has invariably led to elites among caste and communities. That there is also opposition from various religious groups, okay, and the resistance to the caste census is not only coming from the Hindus, Muslim, Christian, and Sikhs are also scared, and since there exist caste even in these communities, and Dalit Muslim, Dalit Christian, and the Dalit Sikhs are catching up on the fight for their rights. Then vulnerable open-ended categories, okay, there may be a vulnerable open-ended categories. So there are certain open-ended categories in the list, such as orphans and destitute children, and the cases of migrant from one state to another, and the status of children from inter-caste marriage. In terms of caste classification are also related question. Okay, so please keep in the mind. Then friend, okay, this you can say these are the arguments against the caste census. Now, there may be a positive outcomes, okay, of the caste census. So what may be? So let's see. So first, bringing the marginalized to the table. Okay, so caste census brings up the number of people who are at the margins. And there are many of such castes which are still nomadic and is deprived of identity and development. Okay. Then social economic caste census, and also you can say caste census, okay, data will be helpful for policy making. And this information is important for any democratic policy making agency. A caste census would bring up the anthropological facts, and on the other provides the basis for framing relevant development policies and require for social justice. And friends, the consumer expenditure survey, that means the 68th round, okay, and the socio-economic caste census 2011 are the base of welfare schemes such as the ones for LPG cylinders, that is liquid petroleum gas cylinders, and rural housing. And there has been no update to this database, which is worrisome. Then caste census is also backing by the judiciary. So legislation of many states on reservation policies for socio-economic okay, backward classes and other backward classes have been struck down by the courts on the ground that the policies on the reservation is made without supporting the scientific database of the socio-economic backward class and other backward class population. So the detailed enumeration of social economic backward class and OBC should be made by the center. Our friends, caste does not marginalize. So let's see how. So we need to do away with the idea of caste applying to only disadvantaged people, poor people, people who are so somehow lacking, and counting of caste does not necessarily strengthen caste or the caste system. Myths of caste elitism can only be debunked through a caste based census. So this is all about the topic. So we have discussed caste census in the times of changing social equation. Do you have any doubt or is it clear? Please tell me. Or if you have any suggestions, or that means if you have any points related to arguments related to positive outcomes, you can give me. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good. So now let's see the next topic, and the next topic is very, very important. Okay. This is important for your prelims examination and also for your mains examination. And the topic is Tribunals Reforms Bill 2021. Okay. Tribunals Reforms Bill 2021. This is related to polity and governance. And what is the context? So Lok Sabha recently passed the Tribunals Reforms Bill 2021 to dissolve at least 8 courts. Okay, at least 8 courts. So please keep in the mind. So what is the bill? Let's see the few points related to the bill. Basically, friends, the bill replaces the Rationalization and Condition of Service Ordinance 2021, which was repealed by the High Court. Okay, and 8 courts were disbanded, which served as the bodies of appeal to hear dispute under various conditions and appeal to existing tribunals such as a civil court or a high court. And there is also provision related to chairperson and members. So chairperson and members of the judiciary are terminated by termination of office with compensation equal to 3 months salary and benefits of their salary termination. Okay, salary termination. So what are tribunals? Anyone? Do you know what is the meaning of tribunals? What is the meaning of tribunals? You know, tribunal word is not the part of of the original constitution. Tribunal was added by the 42nd Constitution Amendment Act in 1976. Yes, yes. Go through. What is the meaning of the tribunals? Anyone?
So lower courts.
Okay, lower courts. Okay, very good. Teji, first of all, I want to say you thanks because every time you give the reply and also every time you are trying. Okay, that means you can participate. So this is a very good. Okay, you can say for your upcoming success. So thank you so much. So now let's discuss what is the meaning of the tribunal. The tribunal is a quasi-judicial body. What is the tribunal? Tribunal is the quasi-judicial body. Just a minute. Quasi-judicial bodies. So tribunal is a quasi-judicial body set up to deal with issues such as resolving administrative or tax-related disputes. Okay, tax-related disputes. So in India, there is competition. Okay, you can say tribunals, competition commission tribunals, maybe competition tribunals. Then so national consumer disputes tribunals. So you'll have to keep in the mind. So the tribunal is a quasi-judicial institution set up to deal with issues such as resolving administrative or tax-related disputes, and it performs many functions such as resolving disputes, determining rights between opposing parties, making administrative decisions, reviewing existing decisions to govern, and so on. So what is the constitutional provision? What is the constitutional provision of tribunals? So I told you tribunal were not a part of the constitution at first, and it was added by the 42nd Constitution Amendment Act, 42nd Constitution Amendment Act 1976. Okay, 1976, on the recommendation of Sardar Swan Singh Committee. On the recommendation of Sardar, Swan Singh Committee, Sardar Swan Singh Committee. So please keep in the mind. Do you know Sardar Swan Singh Committee is also related to Sardar Swan Singh Committee is also related to what? Fundamental rights, fundamental duties, directive principle of state policy, or none of the above? Sardar Swan Singh Committee. No one. Why? Fundamental duties. Sardar Swan Singh Committee is also related to fundamental duties. So please keep in the mind. On the recommendation of Sardar Swan Singh Committee, fundamental duty was added or were added by 42nd Constitution Amendment Act 1976. Okay. So I told you on the recommendation of Sardar Swan Singh Committee, tribunal was added by the 42nd Constitution Amendment Act. And in Indian Constitution, Part 14A was added. Part 14A was added. Okay. And Article 323A and Article 323B were added in Indian Constitution. Article 333A deals with administrative courts. Okay, deals with administrative court, and these are judicial institutions that resolve disputes related to employment and the condition of services of public servants. And Article 323B deals with the court of other jurisdiction, other jurisdiction, such as tax, industrial, labor, foreign exchange, import and export, land reform, food, urban roofing, election in parliament and state legislature, employment and employment rights. Okay. So I told you what is the meaning of the tribunal and what is the constitutional provision. Now let's see the key provision of the bill. What is the key provision of this bill 2021, Tribunals Reform Act 2021? So first of all, dissolution of existing bodies. Dissolution of existing body. So the chairperson and members of the courts will be elected by the central government on the recommendation of the search cum selection committee, and the committee will consist of the Chief Justice of India or the Judge of the Supreme Court nominated by Chief Justice of India as a chairperson by casting vote. Casting vote. That means the chairperson has casting vote. Okay. And 2 secretaries nominated by central government, and the incumbent chairperson or retired high court or a retired chief justice of the high court, and the secretary of the department under which the tribunal is located. Okay. So basically you will have to keep in the mind, so I told you about the candidate, about the selection committee. Okay. So now let's see the dissolution of existing body. So the bill seeks to eliminate certain appeal bodies and transfer their function to other existing judicial bodies. For example, disputes heard by the film certification, appellate tribunal will be resolved by the Supreme Court. Resolved by the Supreme Court. Okay. Then consolidation of existing body. Consolidation of existing body. So the Finance Act 2017 includes court-based courts. For example, the Competition Appellate Tribunal is affiliated with the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. Okay. Then there is a candidate selection committee. I told you that the chairperson and members of the courts will be elected by the central government on the recommendation of a search cum selection committee. Okay, search cum selection committee. Search cum selection committee. Okay, in search cum selection committee, there will be the Chief Justice of India. Okay, Chief Justice of India or their representative. Okay, their representative. Okay, so please keep in the mind Chief Justice of India or their representatives, and two secretaries nominated by the central government. Two, okay, secretaries nominated by central government. Nominated by central government. And the incumbent chairperson or retired high court, okay, judge or retired chief justice of high court. That means there will be a member from high court. High court may be retired or present. Okay, please keep in the mind. Okay, then secretary of department under which the tribunal is located. Secretary of department. Okay. Secretary of department under which is you can say under which the tribunal is located. Okay, now let's see the next key provision. There will be a state administrative courts. A state administrative courts will have separate search electoral committees and chief justice of the Supreme Court of the country concerned, such as the chairperson by casting vote. So please keep in the mind, CGI, representative of CGI has casting vote. Casting vote means if there will be tie. Okay, so CGI will have the powers. Okay, so please keep in the mind. Then eligibility and term of office. Eligibility and terms of office. So the bill provides for a term for a term for 4 years. Okay, for 4 years. So please keep in the mind, or subject to maximum of 70 years. Okay, 70 years. 70 years for the chairperson and maximum 67 for the members. Maximum 67 for the members. And in addition, it specifies a minimum age requirement of 50 years. But in India, okay, there's no minimum, you can say, age for the Supreme Court or the High Court. Okay, for the, you can say, president, there's no maximum age. But in India, there's minimum age for the president, governor, okay, Rajya Sabha MP, then Lok Sabha MP. So please keep in the mind. Then there is also, okay, you can say mention about the removal of councillor. So it is, okay, states that the central government on the recommendation of the select committee of investigators removes the chairperson or member. So friends, what was the court decision and what are the key issues, okay, with the bill? Let's discuss. A Supreme Court in the case of Madras Bar Association versus the Union of India. Okay, so please keep in the mind Madras. Okay, please keep in the mind Madras Bar Association. Okay, versus Union of India. Okay, Union of India has set a minimum requirement for a minimum of 50 years of office and membership and defines a term of 4 years. So, okay, so that means in Madras Bar Association versus Union of India, Supreme Court talks about the minimum age. So what will be the minimum age? 50 years and 4 years. Okay, also maximum for 4 years. So please keep in the mind. And friends, it says such condition violate the principle of separation of power, freedom of law, law and Article 14 of the Constitution of India. So what is the problem associated to it? Let's discuss the problem associated to it. So that means keep the bills, the Tribunals Reforms Bill 2021. So please keep in the mind, okay, Tribunals Reforms Bill 2021. What is the problem associated to it? The bill attempts to reverse the decision of the High Court in terms of the following provision. The minimum requirement for 50 years still finds its place in the bill, and the term of the office of the chairperson and members of the court is 4 years, and the two-word recommendation for each post is the search cum selection committee and requires a better government decision within 3 months. Within 3 months. And then there is also issue raised by the Supreme Court. So which issue was raised by the Supreme Court? Let's discuss one by one. So friends, recently the Supreme Court of India has challenged the government to produce material showing its reason for introducing the Tribunal Reforms Bill of 2021. So first issue was raised by the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said it is unconstitutional and violation. That means there was no discussion of the bill and the government reenacted the same principle as those overturned by the court in the case of Madras Bar Association 2021. So this is similar to the unconstitutional repeal of the law of the judgment passed by the Supreme Court. Okay. So that means there is provision, but government wants to amendment. Okay. So Supreme Court said it is unconstitutional violation. So please keep in the mind, because Supreme Court have, okay, also you can say Supreme Court given the decision in Madras Bar Association versus Union of India case. Then Supreme Court says it is repeated violation of Supreme Court order. Okay, Supreme Court order. So center does not follow repeated instruction issued by the court to ensure the proper functioning of the courts, and the provision, okay, of the act relating to the condition of service and the appointment of counselor and the chairperson have been overturned by the High Court. Then security of tenure. Okay, security of tenure. So the Tribunal Reforms Act 2021 prohibits the appointment of person to the courts of person under the age of 50 years, and it undermines the length or security of hiring. So it undermines the separation of powers, because our Indian Constitution talks about the separation of power. So this bill allows the central government to decide on recommendation made by the electoral committee, preferably within 3 months from the date of such recommendation. And section 3, clause 7 of the bill. Okay, it is not important, but okay, please keep in the mind is section 3 or subclause. That means section 3 subclause 7. Section 3 subclause 7 of the bill authorize the recommendation of a recommendation of two-word panel by search cum selection committee in the central government, and it is violating the principle of separation of powers and legal independence of judiciary. Then Supreme Court talks about the vacancy in the courts. So India now has 16 courts, including National Green Tribunals. Okay, next 16 courts, including National Green Tribunal, the Armed Forces Appellate Tribunal, and the Debt Recovery Tribunal, and among other things, suffers from disability, and the presence of a large number of vacancies for members and chairperson and excessive delay due to their filling have led to the weakening of the courts. Then Supreme Court said it damaged to the decision-making process. So that means in these cases will refer to the High Court or Commercial Court as soon as possible. And there is a lack of expertise in ordinary courts can disrupt the decision-making process. For example, the film certification, appellate tribunal only heard decision that contradicted the decision of the review board, which requires expertise in the arts and cinema. And in addition, the delegation of certain courts and the bodies of appeals and the transfer of their function to the Supreme Court can be criticized for the fact that the Indian courts are already heavily burdened with the existing cases. With the existing cases. Okay. So friends, we have discussed about the Tribunals Reforms Bill 2021. Do you have any doubt or is it clear? Please tell me. Also friends, whenever, okay, you take class, so you should, okay, have blank paper or a pen. So that means you can, okay, you can say ki write down important words, you can write down important provision. But okay, I will share, you can say ki PDF. So according to me, you should also, okay, try to write points. That means ki you can ask a question. For example, I told you the search cum selection committee, okay, and if you have anything, or you can say if you have any doubts, so that means ki you can ask, you can raise your hand, you can participate. So try to do, okay, these things. So we have discussed Tribunals Reforms Bill. Okay. So basically, Tribunals Reforms Bill, we have discussed what is the meaning of tribunals, what is the constitutional provision, what is the key feature of this bill, what is the issue, what is the Supreme Court arguments. Okay. So this is all about this topic. So do you have any doubt or is it clear?
Clear, sir.
Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to, okay, cover a new topic. Friends, we have discussed about the Afghanistan issue. So I will not discuss a new, okay, endgame in Afghanistan. I will share PDF. Okay, you can read. So now I'm going to discuss about plastic waste management rules on beating plastic pollution, because this is very, very important. Okay. For your examination. So plastic waste management rules on beating plastic pollution. So this topic is related to environment. Okay, what is the context? The central government introduced the plastic waste, okay, management amendments rules. Please keep in the mind plastic waste, okay, management. So you'll have to keep in the mind. So central government introduced plastic waste management amendment rules. Plastic waste management amendment rules. Amendment. Okay, amendment rules, and which recognize the severity of pollution caused by plastic labels for daily use. And the decision follow recommendation made by an expert group constituted by the Department of Chemicals and Petrochemicals 2 years ago. So please keep in the mind. So there is a recommendation, okay, recommendation from a expert group which was constituted by the Department of Chemicals and Petrochemicals 2 years ago. Okay, Department of Chemicals and Petrochemicals. So friends, let's discuss about the plastic items completely banned from. Okay, do you know कि government, Indian government say कि plastic items completely banned from 1st July 2022. So earbuds with plastic sticks for balloons, plastic flags, polystyrene, okay, for decoration, plates, cups, glasses, okay, cutlery such as forks, spoons, knives, straw, trays, wrapping or packing, films, cigarette packets. So this is all about, you can say okay, this is related to the plastic, various things, okay, this is to plastic. So plastic bags to be thicker, plastic bags to be thicker. So from September 30 of this year, that means 2021, okay, September 13, 2021, September 30, 2021, the thickness of plastic carry bags has been increased from 50 micro. Okay, you will have to keep in mind 50 microns to 75 microns. 50 microns to 75 microns. Okay, 50 microns to 75 microns. From December 31st December 2022, the thickness will increase to 100 microns. Okay, so you'll have to keep in the mind from 2022 December 2022 microns, there will be 100 microns. Okay, so how big is the plastic issue? Can you tell me how big is this plastic issue? Anyone? What is the plastic issue? What will be the implication of plastic issue? Okay, can you tell me what will be the impact, effect, whatever? Okay, you want to say. Anyone?
Sir, it will take 1,000 year to degrade.
Okay, okay. Anyone else? Very good, so.
So if it will impact the rivers and seas also, which
Yes.
will not be good for the marine lives.
Okay, very good. Anyone else? Okay, no problem. I'm going to tell you see how big is this plastic issue. Okay, you should understand. So first of all, plastic is a synthetic polymer, okay, made of gasoline with structure suitable for various uses, including packaging, construction, and construction, household and sports equipment, automobiles, electronics, agriculture. And you know, plastic is cheap, lightweight, strong, and soft. So please keep in the mind. And more than 300 million tons of plastic are produced annually. Okay, more than 300 million tons of plastic, and half of which are used to design consumer goods such as shopping bags, cups, and straw. And only 9% of recycled plastic waste and about 12% burned, while 79% accumulated in landfills. And friends, according to IUCN, that means the International Union for Conservation of Nature, at least 8 million tons of plastic end up in the ocean every year. 8 million tons, okay, in ocean every year. So, can you understand if plastic issue is a big issue for our environment, for our future, for our generation, for the world? Okay. And friends, there's also you can say a problem related to global waste plant. Okay. So what is the global waste plant problem? Let's discuss. Pollution due to the use of plastic material has become an important environmental challenge facing all countries, not only India, not only Sri Lanka, not only China, not only America, all countries. And only 9% of plastic trash, okay, produced between 1950 and 2015. 1950 and 2015 was reused worldwide, according to a study by researchers at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and others. And 3 millions of Indian waste was recovered in 2018-19. And that you can say this translates about 9,200 tons per day, and the total amount of municipal waste is 55 to 65 million tons, and plastic waste is about 5 to 6% of the solid waste generated in the country. Okay, so this is very important facts you will have to keep in the mind. Now, we should discuss, okay, about which steps also what is the recent steps taken by the India. Okay, let's discuss one by one. So, first friend, okay, you can see here the Plastic Waste Management Regulation 2016. Okay, plastic waste. Okay, plastic waste management regulation. Revolution 2016. Okay, 2016. So please keep in the mind. Yeah, Meena. Yeah, ask your doubt. Do you have any doubt?
No, sir.
Okay, okay. So I told you कि currently the plastic waste management regulation 2016 prohibit the manufacture, importation, storage, distribution, sale and use of handling bags and plastic sheets of less than 50 microns in the country. Less than 50 microns in the country. Okay, please keep in the mind. Okay. And the Prime Minister of India was also awarded the World Champion Award by the UNEP. Okay, that means Narendra Modi awarded with the World Champion Award by the United Nations Environment Program in 2018 for promising to eradicate all once-used plastic by 2022. And India has pledged to take steps to reduce land pollution caused by single-use plastics, and India has generated 30 lakh tons, okay, 34 lakh tons, 34 lakh. India has generated 34 lakh tons of plastic waste in 2019-20, okay, in 2019-20, of which only 60% has been recycled. Only 60% has been recycled. So please keep in the mind. And 6 of the top 100 global producer of polymers, which produces large quantity of plastic waste, are based in India. And 22 states in India have announced ban on single-use plastic, but it had little impact on outcomes. That means the 22 states of India, okay, ban the single use of plastic. So please keep in the mind. So there is also Plastic Waste Management Amendment Regulation 2021. So what is the provision? The Department of Environment has introduced the Plastic Waste Management, okay, Amendment Regulation 2021, and these law prohibit certain types of plastic items that are used and have low use and high waste disposal capacity by 2022. And the permissible size of plastic bags, currently 50 microns, will be increased to 70 microns from September 30, 2021, and 120 microns from 31st December 2022. And high-strength plastics are easily treated as waste and have recycling performance. And friends, at the policy level, the concept of extended, okay, product responsibility already mentioned in under 2016 regulation should be promoted. Okay, that means if you have produced plastics, so that means you will have to recycle. Okay, you will have to reuse. And extended product responsibility, okay, it is a policy in which producers are given significant financial or physical responsibility for the treatment or disposal of post-consumer products. And friends, the CPCB, that means the Central Pollution Control Board, together with State Pollution Agency, will monitor the ban and identify violation and impose fines already, okay, already imposed under the Environmental Protection Act 1986, okay, 1986. So there is also, friends, problems with plastic waste management. So what is the problems, okay, related to plastic waste management? Let's see the problems. Okay, problems related to plastic waste management. In terms of policy, India's environment policy very deliberately good, but bad in terms of result. This means there is no result. Okay, there is no impact. Okay, and friends, with regard to government spending, in the absence of strong will from national government to replace municipal contracts, so that means there's no cooperation. Okay, no cooperation. There's gap between central government and municipal government, and also you can say municipalities or state government. And regarding recycling, due to a lack of partition, most plastic waste cannot be recycled. Okay, that means there is no provision of segregation. Segregation. Okay, so please keep in the mind. Okay, and cold regulation, that means this has led to a ban on the movement of plastic waste to other province with recycling. Okay, so which steps have been taken so far? Let's discuss the steps. So first of all, there is a GLOBE, okay, Litter Partnership Project, So it was launched by the IMO. Okay, it was launched by the IMO. That means the International, okay, Maritime Organization, and the Food and Agriculture Organization of United, okay, Nation. That means the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. Okay, and this is the first subsidy from the Norwegian government. So what is the purpose of Go okay Litter Partnership Project? Purpose is to prevent and reduce marine plastic waste from shipping and okay fisheries. So you'll have to keep in the mind reduce okay marine plastic waste. So please keep in the mind reduce marine plastic waste and also help identify potential recycling of plastic. Okay, so please keep in the mind. So it can okay promote about recycling. So please keep in the mind. And 30 countries, including India, have joined this global marine pollution program. So that means the 30 countries is the partner, okay, of this program. And friends, there is also World Environment Day. Okay, World Environment Day 2018. World Environment Day 2018 is held in India. And world leaders promise beat pollution. Okay, beat okay pollution beat pollution. Please keep in the mind and end it use completely. And then, specifically in India, the Plastic Waste Management Regulation 2016 states that every local organization must be responsible for establishing infrastructure for sorting, collecting, processing, and disposing of plastic waste. And there is also Plastic Waste Management Regulation in amendment. Okay. So the 2018 regulation introduced the concept of extra manufacturer responsibility, okay, extended producer responsibility, I told you, and prohibit single-use plastic with the aim of liberating India of once-use plastic by 2022. So friends, what should be the suggestive measures? Can you tell me what should be the suggestive measures? Can you suggest any points related to plastic management, how to manage plastic waste?
So we can use our own cloth bags while going to market.
Yes, very good.
Sir, reduce plastic bottle and reusable. Sorry, sir. Use of bamboo bottle,
Yeah,
sir.
got it. Yes, got it. Deepika, do you have any point? Meena? Okay, so I'm going to tell you what should be the suggestive measure according to me. Okay, so as consumer, we need to make sure that all the plastic waste that leaves our homes is separated and not contaminated with food waste. And handling plastic waste requires practical knowledge, not only for those who manufacture plastic, but also for those who use it. And the owner of the product and the manufacturer must try and understand the penalty for the plastic assembly, and that way okay you will encounter after its packaging purpose has been used. And citizens should bring about a change in behavior and contribute to non-pollution and help to separate waste and waste management. Then encouraging innovation in the use of alternative plastic identification methods and digital plastic waste management solutions. India Plastic Challenge Hack 2021 is designed for a student of higher education institution and initiative known under the Startup India initiative. And also we should use alternative option, for example bamboo. Okay, then also you can say for example our clothes bags. Okay. For example you can say a paper bag. Okay, so that means these are the suggestive measures, so please keep in the mind. Now let's discuss Okay, about the films topics. Though let's see the first topic, and the first topic is friend. Tiva tribe celebrated Wanchua festival. Okay, Wanchua festival. So this is related to history and okay culture. So the context is the tribesmen celebrated the Wanchua festival in Karbi, okay, Karbi Anglong district of Assam, okay, Karbi Anglong district of Assam, okay, of Assam. So what is Wanchua festival? So Wanchua festival is one of the most important celebration in the life of the Tiwa tribe of Assam. And with every harvest, it comes with song, dance, bunch of ritual, and people clad in their native attires. Okay, that means dresses. And with sticks in hand, the people proceed with rhythmically beat the rice powder and occasionally pause to move around the circle. And the people of Tiwa tribe associate the bountiful harvest with the higher power from nature. Higher power from nature. And this takes the form of pigs, okay, skulls and bones which act as deities are preserved, okay, through many generations. So I told you Manchua festival is related to Tiwa tribe, okay, from Assam. So let's see the few facts related to Tiwa tribe, which will be very important for your PSC and state service examination. So Tiwa tribe is a community that centered itself around a traditional form of agriculture, and also you can say ki traditional form of agriculture, and also known as La Lang. Okay, La Lang, and the indigenous community is recognized as a scheduled tribe within the state of Assam. And the Tiwa community is far removed from the noise and influence of the urban chaos. And the Tiwa practice jhum or shifting cultivation. What is the meaning of jhum or shifting cultivation? So that means ki under this kind of cultivation, the land is first cleared for any vegetation, and that is later set on fire. That means ki slash and burn. And the result is a more fertile soil that is freshly increased with the potash and all the okay more useful for a bountiful crop. So Tiwa tribe basically related to Assam, Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh, and Manipur. Okay, and the main festival of the Tiwa tribe are three Pisu, that means ki Bihu, Borot Utsav, Progra Puja, Wanchua, Jonbil Mela, Kavla, okay, Langkhon Puja, and Yangli Puja. Okay, please keep in the mind. And then, and friends, there is also subgroups of the tribe. Okay, so the tribe is majorly divided into two following subgroups. So let's discuss. That means the Tiwa tribe is divided between okay, divided between Hill Tiwa, and Plains Tiwa. Hill Tiwa and Plains Tiwa. And Hill Tiwa, they live in westernmost area of Karbi, Anglong district. And language is Tibeto-Burman language. And the religion, one half of them follow their traditional religion, and it is based on the worship of local deities. And the other half has been converted, okay, to Christianity since the 1950. And the Plains Tiwa, they live on the flatlands, okay, flatlands of the southern bank of Brahmaputra Valley. And the language, the vast majority speak Assamese as their mother tongue, and their system, descent system is patrilineal, okay, patrilineal. And the religion, their religion shares many elements with Assamese Hinduism, but remains specific. Okay. Now, friends, I'm going to tell you about the important tribes and their festivals, because this is very important. Maybe UPSC ask a question, because art and culture is very important for your examination. Okay, so let's discuss the important tribes and their festivals. Okay, Yes, just a minute. Important tribes and their festival. Yes. So first is Angamis. Okay, and their festival is Sekren. Okay, Sekren. Okay.
Sir, you're
If you
not
are right,
audible.
please keep in the mind. Yeah, yeah. Tribes is Garo tribes. Garo tribes. Okay.
Sir,
Garo tribes.
you
Their
are not
festival is
audible, sir.
okay. Okay. Just now, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. 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 Just okay. Okay. Just give me a 5 minutes. Okay, so now let's discuss next. Okay, so I told you about the Garo tribes. Their festival is Wangla. Okay, and then there is Gons. Please keep in the mind, and you'll have to read about tribes. Okay, and Gons main festival is Kislapur Jatra. Okay, Kislapur Kislapur Jatra. Jatra. Then Khasi tribe, their festival is Nongkrem. Okay, Nong, Nong, Nongkrem. Then there is Munda tribe. Okay, Munda tribe is Mage Parv, Ind Parv, Jom Nagwat, various festival. Then there is Santhal. Santhal main festival is Karam festival. Okay, Santhal basically from Bihar. Okay, and Jharkhand. So there is a main festival is Karam festival. So this is all about this topic. Okay, so now let's discuss the next topic, and the next topic is related to famous personality. Okay, famous person of India. So the next is friend Subhadra Kumari Chauhan, honored by Google Doodle. Okay, so this is very important. Maybe a state service or UPSC may ask a question. So what is the context? So an illustrated Google Doodle has honored Subhadra Kumari Chauhan, India's first woman Satyagrahi. So please keep in the mind Subhadra Kumari Chauhan, India's first woman Satyagrahi. Satyagrahi, okay, who also wrote the iconic Jhansi Ki Rani poem. Jhansi Ki Rani poem. खूब लड़ी मर्दानी वो तो झांसी वाली रानी थी, है ना, झांसी की रानी पोयम एंड ऑन हर 170th birth anniversary. So who was Subhadra Kumari Chauhan? So first of all, friends, Subhadra Kumari Chauhan was born, okay, on 16th August 1904 in Nihalpur village, Prayagraj. This is not important for your examination. So what was their education? Okay, so she attended the crossed, okay, with girls schools and passed middle school in 1919, and she got married to Thakur Lakshman Singh Chauhan of Khandwa at the age of 60. Now I'm going to tell you about the most important fact, which is important for examination: contribution, okay, of Subhadra Kumari Chauhan for freedom struggle. So both Subhadra Kumari Chauhan and her husband, okay, became a part of Mahatma Gandhi's non-cooperation in 1921. And during the struggle, she became the first woman Satyagrahi to court arrest and was subsequently jailed in Nagpur. And Subhadra Kumari Chauhan continued to participate in the freedom struggle and joined Mahatma Gandhi's movement in 1923 as well as in 1942. And in between these periods, she also became a member of their legislative assembly in what was formerly known as Central Provinces. So what was their, okay, work? So Subhadra Kumari Chauhan became a prominent poet and freedom fighter in an age that was dominated by the males. And she used her poetry to boost the morale of the countrymen in their fight for freedom. And she also highlighted the hardship faced by Indian women, including gender and caste discrimination. And Subhadra Kumari Chauhan died in 1948 in a car accident in Shivni, MP, on her way back to Jabalpur from Nagpur, where she had gone to attend an assembly session. So, friend, what was the legacy? The country honored, okay, her by naming a Coast Guard ship after her, and the state did so by putting up a statue in Jabalpur. India Post released a postage stamp to commemorate her. So there is a few poems which is related to Subhadra Kumari Chauhan: Jeevan Phool, Chilmil Tare, Neem, Tum, Rakhi, Koyal, Iskarona, Khilone Wala, Biro Ka Kaisa Ho Basant, Tridhara, Mukul. So this is not important. Jhansi Ki Rani, okay, and short story Hingwala. So this is these are the famous, okay, you can say literature of Subhadra Kumari Chauhan. Yeah, now let's discuss the next topic, and the next topic is related to United Nations. Okay, United Nations Peacekeeping Force. So India collaborates with United Nations launch tech platform for peacekeepers. Okay, for peacekeeper. So India, in collaboration with the United Nations, launched Unite Aware. Okay, Unite Aware. Please keep in the mind Unite Aware, a technology platform to ensure the safety and security of peacekeepers and who are operating in increasingly complex and risky environment across the world. Now, let's discuss what is Unite Aware. Okay, so it is a situational awareness software program that will utilize modern surveillance technology for real-time threat, okay, assessments to peacekeepers. And India has contributed 1.6 million US dollar for the project, and India has developed the technology platform in partnership with the United Nations Department of Peacekeeping Operation and Department of Operational Support. So what is the objective of the Unite Aware, or objective of this mission? demonstrate the impact of modern surveillance technology on the detection of asymmetric threats and to improve camp security for United Nations peacekeeper, the overall security situation and the quality of situational awareness. Okay, so now let's see the United Nations peacekeeping mission for initial launch. So the Unite Aware platform will be initially launched, okay, in 4 United Nations peacekeeping mission. Means, okay, MINUSMA in Mali, then UNMISS in South Sudan, then UNFICIP in Cyprus, then AMISOM in Somalia. Okay, and the launch of Unite Aware platform came as India assumed the presidency of the 15th Nation United Security Council for the month of August. So what is UN peacekeeping force, or what is United Nations peacekeeping? Let's discuss the few points. Basically, friends, United Nations peacekeeping is guided by 3 basic principles. Okay, United Nations peacekeeping guided by 3 principles. Okay, so what is the principle? Consent of the parties. Consent of the parties. Okay, the consent of the parties, impartiality. So you'll have to keep in the mind impartiality. Okay, and the third is non-use of force except in self-defense and defense of the mandate. Okay, non-use of force. Okay, non-use of force except in self-defense and defense of the mandate. And friends, United Nations peacekeepers provide security and the political and peace-building support to help countries make the difficult early transition from conflict to peace. Okay, so now let's see India, a major contribution, okay, nation to United Nations peacekeeping activities. How? Let's discuss. In 2017, India becomes the first country to deploy an all-women contingent, contingent to a United Nations peacekeeping mission in 2017. And at present, there are 5,506 troops and police from India who have been deployed to 9 different United Nations peacekeeping missions. And it is the second highest amongst troop contributing countries. And more than 2 lakh Indians have served in 49 of the 71 United Nations peacekeeping missions established around the world since 1948. Since 1948. Okay, so it is very, very important. Now let's discuss the next topic. Any doubt? Anyone? Clear? Yeah, you'll have to read about
No,
United
sir.
Nations and its structure. Okay. So now let's discuss the next topic, and the next topic. Okay, just a minute. Next topic is 5th meeting of BRICS industry minister. Okay, 5th meeting of BRICS industry minister. So context is, friend, the commerce and industry minister Piyush Goyal chaired the 5th meetings of BRICS industry minister and called for expanding, okay, the horizon of new development bank. Horizon of new development bank. I will tell you what is new development bank. So what is the BRICS? So first of all, friends, you'll have to keep in the mind BRICS was founded in 2006. In 2006, and BRICS is the group of 5 countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Okay, you'll have to keep in the mind. And these countries together about 42% of the world population. 42% of the world population. 23% of the world GDP. Okay, world GDP. 23% of world GDP, 30% of the territory, okay, 30% of world territory, okay, and friends, 18% of the global trade, 18% of global trade. That means the BRICS countries, okay, BRICS countries. And BRICS countries subsidiary is New Development Bank. This is okay, subsidiary, New Development Bank. Okay, New Development Bank. And what is the aim? The BRICS mechanism aim to promote peace, security, development, and cooperation. Yeah, let's see the key highlight of the latest meeting. So the BRICS minister called for the need to adopt emerging new technology, recognizing it's an important tool for modernization and transformation of industry and promotion of economic growth. And they also committed to play a constructive role towards the promotion of intellectual property rights and express their intention to collaborate with new development bank. And the meeting concluded with the minister committing to work together as a group, share best practices, and move ahead in positive and constructive manner to achieve the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. Okay, for sustainable development. Yeah, what is the theme? The India chose the theme of intra-BRICS cooperation for continuity, consolidation, and consensus for its chairship. So what were the major points made by India's minister? So India has been working towards channelizing technology and has leveraged existing platforms and digital technology such as Aadhaar and unified payment interface payment along with online systems like CoWIN, okay, and digital vaccination certificates being widely successful. And when special emphasis is given to expansion of horizon of new development bank and for utilizing its resources for strengthening social infrastructure, especially for funding service delivery in education and health sector, besides promotion of infrastructure and industrial sector. After there is also, you can say, BRICS principle. So the following principles are laid out by BRICS for the task of strengthening and the reforming the multilateral system. So first, global governance is more inclusive, representative and participatory to facilitate greater and more meaningful participation of developing and least developed countries, and strengthen the capacities of individual states and international organizations, promote peer, also you can say promote people centered international cooperation at the core based on inclusive consultation and collaboration for the benefit of all, make multilateral organization more responsive, action oriented, solution oriented based on the norms and principle of international law, and a spirit of mutual respect, justice, equality, and mutually beneficial cooperation. Yeah. Now let's discuss about the NDB, that is the New Development Bank. Okay, just a minute. New Development Bank. Okay. So the New Development Bank is a multilateral development bank. Okay, it is a multilateral development bank. Multilateral development, bank. Multilateral Development Bank, founded in 2014 but functioned in 2016. Okay, and established by BRICS, that means Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and objective to finance infrastructure and sustainable development project in BRICS and other emerging economies and developing economies. Also, you can say developing countries. Okay, so this is all about, you can say, fifth meeting of BRICS industry ministry. Okay, minister. Now let's discuss the next topic. RBI to put in place a PRISM to strengthen compliance by lenders. Compliance by lender related to economy. And the context, the RBI, is putting in a place a platform for regulated entities for integrated supervision and monitoring. That means a platform for regulated entities for integrated supervision and monitoring, that means PRISM. Okay, please keep in the mind, to strengthen compliance by supervised entities. Okay, so what is PRISM? Let's discuss. It is a web-based end-to-end workflow automation system. And the focus of its new approach is to continuous supervision, is on early identification of risk and conduct of supervisory action. And it is aimed at helping supervised entities to strengthen their internal defense and resilience. And focus of its new approach is to bring focus on root cause analysis. That means the RCA. Root cause analysis. Root cause analysis means you will have to study about what was the main cause, why their problem, has originated. So you'll have to keep in the mind. And friends, Prism will have various functions. So first, built-in remediation workflow, time tracking, notification alerts, management information system reports, and dashboards. Okay, and dashboards. So which entities in India are regulated by RBI? We should understand, okay, which entity. So first, RBI regulated and supervised various entities in India. Entities regulated by RBI, first bank, All India Financial Institution, NBFC, that means the non-banking financial company, all payment system providers, Okay. And friends, there is also RBI annual report 2020-2021 on supervisory framework. So in its latest report, RBI said it has been working, okay, towards strengthening the supervisory framework for both banking and non-banking sector. And during the year, initiatives were taken towards first integration of supervisory function meant for different supervised entities, specialization and reinforcement of supervision through both vertical and horizontal risk assessment, then setting up a dedicated college of supervisor for capacity development, then harnessing super tech, that means the supervisory technology. Okay, so we have discussed about the PRISM. Now let's discuss third, topic. Next topic is related to environment. A third of India's coastline underwent erosion in 28 years. Okay, this is the report of Ministry of Earth Science. So as per a latest report by the National Center for Coastal Research, that means the NCCR, National Center for Coastal Research, okay, and under the Union Ministry of Earth Science, 27% of coastline expanded between 1990 and 2018. Okay, 1919 to 2018. How many percent? 27% coast was expanded. Okay, and the country's coastline is 6,000. Okay, 631 0.53 kilometer, 53 kilometer. Okay, and friend, there is erosion. So now I'm going to, okay, yeah. So erosion 2,135.2100, okay, 35.65%. You can say कि, sorry, 65 kilometer. Yeah. So friends, 2,135.65 kilometer was subject to varying degrees of erosion. Then there is expansion. You can see here, yeah, 1,760.06 kilometers expanding during this period, and stable nearly 2,700 kilometers of the coastline is stable. Okay, so please keep in the mind, this is very important. You can see here, coastline underwent erosion: West Bengal 60%, Puducherry 56%, Kerala 41%, Tamil Nadu 41%, Andhra Pradesh 28%, Gujarat including Daman and Diu, okay. Then friends, there is Odisha 26%, Karnataka 24%, Maharashtra 22%, Goa 19%. Then coast expanded state by Odisha 51, Andhra Pradesh 48, Karnataka 26, West Bengal 25, Tamil Nadu 22, Kerala 21, Gujarat and Daman and Diu 20, Goa 14%, Maharashtra 10%, Puducherry 8%. Okay. So what is the factors and causes of soil erosion? Let's discuss the factors and causes of soil erosion. Can you tell me what is the factor? Which factor is related to the soil erosion? What is the causes of soil erosion? Anyone? Teddy, Shobhan, Devika, Raksha,
Sir,
Meena?
deforestation.
Yes. Okay, very good. Yeah, yeah, Daisy. Deforestation.
Sir, and too much industrial activities.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so one next.
सर फ्लोट में अभी सॉइल इरोजन
Okay, very good. Okay. So now I'm going to give you the details and also a single line. Single line means a single points. Also you can say कि one liner points. Okay, one liner points related to causes of soil erosion. Human induced factors. So first anthropogenic. Okay, factors. Human induced factors. Faulty farming system. Faulty farming system, deforestation, okay, deforestation, then clearance of land for agriculture purpose, that means the agriculture also, okay, then construction, that means the dam construction, okay, road construction, okay, construction, then diversion of the natural course of rivers, okay, that means the channel of course, then mining. These are the basic reason or causes or factors. Okay. And friends, also there is rainfall intensity and runoff. So the impact of raindrops break up the soil and water buildup, creates runoff, taking sediments with it. So friends, here's the next question. Why more erosion in eastern coast rather than western coast? So answer is simple. The eastern coast underwent more erosion due to frequent cyclonic activities from Bay of Bengal in past 3 decades compared to the western coast, okay, which remain largely stable. So please keep in the mind, okay. So eastern coast underwent more erosion due to frequent cyclonic activities from Bay of Bengal in the past 3 decades. And maybe we have covered this cyclonic topic in any previous classes. So now let's discuss about the National Center for Coastal Research. So NCCR, it is an attached office of Ministry of Earth Science, monitor shoreline change along the Indian coast. And it has carried out the National Shoreline Change Assessment Mapping for Indian coast using 28 years of satellite data from 1992 to 2018 along 9 coastal states and 2 union territories to provide information for coastal management strategy. Okay. And the following organization also undertake studies on shoreline change, coastal erosion, and their impact. So first, National Center for Sustainable Coastal Management under the Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Then Central Water Commission under the Union Ministry of Jal Shakti. Under the Union Ministry of Jal Shakti. Okay. So we have covered these topics. And friends, there is 3 to 4 topics remaining. Okay, we'll cover in next class or in any extra classes. Or also, I will share a PDF. Okay, to you with you